Like, follow, and share, Lycoming Ya-Head. We dare pulses of the poor, and why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lycoming Ya-Head. I'm Steve Marshall.
And I'm Beth Fulmer.
Okay, so you sent us a whole bunch of stuff about the Williamsport budget.
Yeah.
Proposals from the past few years, a news article all about how the 2025 budget got approved, and then even another article that was really highlighting some council members' concerns, like serious concerns, about where the city's finances are headed.
Right.
It feels like there's a lot of anxiety, maybe even some fear swirling around all this.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's dive in and see if we can kind of untangle it all, starting with just like a little budgeting 101.
Okay, sounds good.
Cities need money to operate, right?
Of course, yeah.
And where does that money come from?
Well, it comes from property taxes, usually fees. Sometimes they get some state or federal funding.
Right.
But the budget's like the plan for how all that money gets spent each year.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's tackle this big 2% property tax hike that's coming in 2025.
Yeah.
And that's on top of a similar increase that they did in 2024.
Right.
2 years in a row of these tax increases. You know, that's bound to get people's attention, especially since everything else is getting more expensive these days.
Exactly.
For an average homeowner in Williamsport, how much more are we talking about?
So with this latest hike, it's about $60 more a year.
Okay.
But then you've got to factor in the previous hike, right?
Right.
So that's an extra $120 annually compared to just a couple of years ago in 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, it adds up.
It does add up. Now, is this typical for Williamsport?
You know, looking back at the budget proposals that you sent me, it actually wasn't typical.
Oh.
So in 2021, there wasn't an increase at all. So this kind of shift towards back-to-back increases, it suggests that there are probably some underlying financial pressures that the city's dealing with.
Right. This isn't just some like random thing.
No.
There's something going on here.
Yeah.
Speaking of things going on, I noticed in the news article there that the city council, they weren't all on the same page about this budget.
Oh, absolutely not. There were some pretty strong opinions voiced during those meetings, for sure.
Like Councilwoman Katz, for example.
Yeah.
She voted against the budget and the tax increase both times.
Yeah.
She's like waving a big red flag here, basically warning about potential layoffs and even like the city going bankrupt if they don't, get their finances in order.
Yeah, she didn't hold back. She was calling out what she sees as wasteful spending.
Oh, really?
Like the $500 a month to broadcast the council meetings. She had a problem with that. She also brought up the city's salary structure, like how some longtime employees are actually making less than some newer hires.
Wow.
So yeah, her concerns, they paint a pretty serious picture.
Yeah, they do. Now, on the other side of that, we have Council President Yoder, who seemed a little bit more optimistic.
He did, yeah. He thinks that there's this sense of urgency among city officials, a commitment to finding solutions.
Yeah.
He emphasized that Williamsport has like unique economic demographics. So suggesting that maybe the city is facing some challenges that are specific to like its local situation. It's interesting. You've got these two very different narratives.
Yeah.
One that's like impending crisis. The other is sort of cautious optimism.
Right.
And I think that tension is really important for us to kind of dig into here because I think it reflects this broader debate that's happening in Williamsport right now.
Yeah.
Like, how do you address these budget problems?
Right.
What are the priorities? It's not just numbers. It's about different philosophies and approaches to governing, really.
Okay, so we've got this tax hike, we've got a divided council, and we've got a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
But let's get down to like the brass tacks here, the nitty-gritty. This budget isn't just about raising taxes, it's about cutting spending too, right?
Right.
So let's take a look at where those cuts are actually happening and what it might mean for the people who live in Williamsport.
Yeah, I think this is where we start to see the real-world impact of these financial decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's start with public safety. The Fire Bureau, their training budget, took a pretty big hit, got slashed by $25,000.
Yeah, that's not nothing.
No, it's not. And firefighter training, that's crucial.
Oh, for sure.
Not just for their safety, but for everybody they're trying to protect.
Absolutely.
And then we've got similar cuts on the police side, too. Their budget for new vehicles, it got seriously reduced. It went from $291,000 all the way down to just $49,000.
Oh.
That makes you wonder, are they going to be able to maintain the fleet?
Yeah.
respond to emergencies effectively?
Mm,
It really raises some questions.
it does.
Even the mayor's office, they didn't get away scot-free here.
No.
Their supplies budget, it got chopped from $3,700 down to $1,200.
Mm-hmm.
I guess even the mayor has to tighten his belt a little bit.
It seems so. Maybe it's an attempt to kind of spread the pain a little.
Yeah.
Like everyone's got to contribute,
Right.
shared sacrifice or something.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But the department that really seems to have gotten hit hard here is streets and parks.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from park maintenance, pool repairs, even rec programs.
Yeah.
They're all seeing reduced funding. So Bowman Field maintenance lost $5,000. Flood control went down by $2,000.
Mm.
Even the pool program, like their equipment repair budget, that got slashed by $2,000.
Yeah, those might seem small individually, but when you add them all up,
Right.
the consequences, I mean, they could be really significant. Parks and recreation, that's vital for a city's well-being. They attract new people, they provide spaces for families.
Right.
It adds to the quality of life,
It makes you wonder if maybe the city's being a little bit short-sighted here.
Yeah.
Like, could neglecting all of this stuff ultimately lead to further decline?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've seen the specifics here, but I'm kind of curious to get your expert take on the bigger picture. Are these cuts just like, the city tightening its belt, or are we maybe seeing some signs of something more serious, like deeper financial trouble brewing?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
The interesting thing is with all these documents, it's like we've got this trail of breadcrumbs to follow.
Okay.
Like we can look back at the past few years and kind of see how they got to this point.
All right, so let's put on our detective hats and follow those breadcrumbs.
Let's do it.
When you compare this 2025 budget to the previous years, what kind of patterns jump out at you?
One thing that I noticed right away is that some departments just seem to get hit with cuts over and over again.
Oh, really?
Like streets and parks, for instance. Their budget's gotten smaller every year since 2021.
Wow.
So it's not just like a one-time belt-tightening thing. It's a trend.
It's like they're putting a tourniquet on streets and parks.
Yeah, pretty much.
Why? Why that department? What's driving that?
Well, if we look at where the city's money comes from, the revenue side, it paints a pretty clear picture. Property taxes, which is a big chunk of their income, it just hasn't been growing as fast as their expenses.
So that's the root of the problem, declining tax revenue.
It's a huge part of it, yeah, but it's not the whole story.
Okay.
We also have to factor in that the cost of providing city services, like keeping the lights on and everything, that's been going up too.
Makes sense.
Things like healthcare for employees, fuel costs, it's all skyrocketed. Then you throw in inflation on top of it all, and yeah, you got yourself a recipe for a budget crunch.
Oh, yeah. It's like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Declining revenue plus rising costs equals really tough choices.
Yeah.
But I'm still stuck on why certain departments, like you said, streets and parks, they seem to be carrying a heavier load. I mean, what does that say about what the city's prioritizing?
That's where it gets really interesting. When you look closer at these budgets, it's clear that public safety, that's still their top priority.
Okay.
The police and fire departments, yeah, they saw some cuts, but their overall fundings stayed pretty steady over the years.
So even when things are tight, they're committed to those core services.
Absolutely.
But does that mean they're willing to sacrifice other things that matter, like parks and rec?
That's a big question, and honestly, I think it's a debate that's happening all over the country right now.
Yeah.
Can we afford to think of parks and recreation as extras?
Right.
I mean, they play such a huge role in how healthy and vibrant a community is.
It's such a tough balancing act.
It is.
But if you neglect those things, I feel like it could backfire in the long run.
Oh, yeah.
If a city doesn't invest in its public spaces and its quality of life, it becomes less attractive to people.
Exactly. People won't want to live there.
Businesses won't want to set up shop.
Right, and then you're stuck in this downward spiral.
Right.
Property values go down, so there's even less tax revenue.
Oh, wow.
And then it becomes even harder to fund those basic services in the first place.
Oh, it all comes full circle.
It does.
We can't forget about Councilwoman Katz and those concerns she raised about layoffs and even bankruptcy.
Right?
I mean, those aren't just like abstract ideas. Those have real consequences. So break it down for me. What would a potential bankruptcy actually mean for the people living in Williamsport?
Well, in the simplest terms, bankruptcy means the city can't pay its bills.
Okay.
It sets off a whole legal process, but basically essential services, they get disrupted. Maybe even stopped altogether.
Wow.
So think about it. Trash piling up, street lights going out, potholes everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it would affect every single person living there.
It would be chaos.
Yeah.
And what about the long-term consequences?
It's not good. The city's credit rating would tank, so
Okay.
it'd be really hard for them to borrow money for projects in the future. Essential improvements to things like roads and bridges that could get delayed or even canceled.
And wouldn't that affect property values too?
Oh, absolutely. When a city looks unstable, like it's in decline, people don't want to buy homes there. Property values plummet. People have trouble selling.
Right.
And that just leads to even lower tax revenue. It's a vicious cycle.
It's scary to think about. It's a lot to take in. This tax hike, the divided council, cuts to essential services, and then this whole possibility of bankruptcy hanging over everything. What does it all mean for Williamsport? Where do they go from here?
Yeah, it really feels like Williamsport's at a crossroads here. You know, some folks are trying to steer through these choppy financial waters, but then you got others waving these big red flags about a potential crisis.
Right.
And in the middle of it all, you got the residents just trying to make sense of it all.
Caught in the crossfire.
Yeah, exactly. And what we can't forget is this isn't some abstract problem, you know?
Right.
It's not just for the politicians and the bureaucrats to figure out. These budget decisions, they have a very real impact on every single person who lives in Williamsport.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking cuts to Parks and Rec, potential layoffs, this threat of bankruptcy, these are issues that hit close to home for everyone.
So what can residents actually do? It's easy to feel kind of helpless when you're looking at all these like big, complex financial problems.
Right, but that's where informed citizen engagement comes in. I mean, understanding the city's budget, that's the first step.
Okay.
Like where the money comes from, where it goes, you know, understanding the tough choices that are being made. But knowledge without action, it doesn't really get us anywhere.
So it's not enough to just understand the problem.
Nope.
You got to do something about it. What would that look like in this case?
Well, going to city council meetings, that's a great place to start.
Okay.
I mean, that's where the decisions get made.
Right.
It's a chance for people to actually make their voices heard. Don't underestimate the power of just showing up and speaking out about what you care about.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, advocating for your favorite park, questioning cuts that are being proposed, or even just demanding that the whole budget process be more transparent, your voice matters.
Yeah, it's about holding your elected officials accountable, making sure they understand the real-world consequences of those decisions.
Exactly. And remember, you're not alone in this.
Right.
Connect with other people who are concerned.
Yeah.
Form community groups, work together. I mean, that's how you really amplify your impact.
Working together to create that thriving community.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to this one question, you know? What do the people of Williamsport actually want for their city? What matters most to them?
Every budget is a reflection of values. So what does this budget tell us about Williamsport's values?
It's a good question.
And what would you change if you were in charge?
Yeah.
What would you prioritize?
That's the question we want to leave you with today. Knowing what you now know about Williamsport's budget, the challenges they're facing, but also the potential that's there, what would you cut? Where would you invest? And maybe most importantly, how are you going to get involved to help shape the future of your city?
Like, follow, and share. Lycoming Ya-Head. We dare pulses of the poor. And why do people leave? Crank up the truth with Beth and Steve.